Thank God the old hag isn't here. That was the first sentence I heard as I stepped onto the porch of my daughter's Charleston home, gift in hand. Heart already trembling with that familiar mix of hope and caution. I froze. My name is Evelyn Hartwell, and until that moment, I still believed my daughter Lorraine wanted me at her Thanksgiving dinner. Her voice carried through the cracked window, sharp enough to sting. Then another voice, her husband Grant, laughed. "You lucked out, babe. Last thing we need is her fussing over everything." More laughter. Chairs scraped. Someone clinked a glass. I pressed my fingers tighter around the wrapped casserole dish I had made the night before, the one recipe Lorraine always said reminded her of her father. I had come early, so I would not interrupt anything, so I could slip in quietly with my offering and let her shine. Instead, I stood there invisible, listening to people who shared my blood celebrate my absence. I set the dish down gently beside the door. My hands shook, but I refused to let the lid rattle. I backed away from the porch as quietly as I could, the wood steps sighing under my shoes. Behind me, the front door opened. A surprised voice gasped. "Lorraine, this was outside. Someone left this." What Lorraine picked something up my dish, I knew the weight of it by heart. "Who brought?" Grant's voice cut in. "Hold on." Was she here? A chair toppled. Someone swore, feet rushed across hardwood. Did she hear us? Oh God. "Lorraine, what did you say?" "You told me she wasn't coming." "I thought she wouldn't." Their panic rose behind me, like a storm growing louder as I reached the end of the driveway. I did not turn back. I kept my shoulders straight. My breath controlled my chest tight enough to bruise. Something shifted inside me, not anger, not yet, but a cold clarity I had never felt before. I walked toward my car keys, already in my hand, knowing this Thanksgiving would mark the dividing line of my life. How do you face a family who celebrates your absence? I reheated a small plate of yesterday's leftovers, turkey, sweet potatoes, stuffing. I had made for the dinner I never walked into. The microwave hummed, and for a moment, the sound felt like a reminder of every year I had spent doing everything alone. When my husband died, Lorraine was only 10. I promised her that holidays would still feel warm. I worked nights at the factory, mornings at the bakery, and every Thanksgiving, I found a way to make the table look full. I sold the thin gold bracelet my mother left me so Lorraine could have a real turkey one year, not just chicken thighs dressed up with herbs. She never knew that part. She only remembered the smell. I pushed the fork through my food, unable to taste any of it. A memory rose on its own. Lorraine at 15, laughing as she stirred gravy. "Mom, you always do too much," she had said, and I smiled back. "If I do too much, it is only because I love you." She used to lean into me when she said thank you. Now she leaned away. My phone buzzed on the table. One missed call. Then her voice filled the kitchen in a clipped voicemail. "Mama, I saw the dish you left. You could have at least knocked." Now everyone is confused, and honestly, it made things awkward. "Call me back when you can." Her tone wasn't worried. It was irritated, as if my leaving quietly had caused trouble for her. I set the phone down as gently as I could. The turkey had gone cold again, but I didn't warm it. I just folded my hands in my lap and breathed, letting the silence settle over me like something I finally recognized. I had spent decades keeping Thanksgiving alive for her. Today, I was the only one sitting at my table. What if the child you poured your life into no longer sees you as family? I sat in my small cottage, the clock blinking past midnight, the house quiet, except for the faint ring of my phone vibrating again. Lorraine's name lit up the screen. I turned it face down. For the first time in 28 years, I did not pick up. Another ring, then another. A voicemail dropped, her voice sharp. "Mama, this is getting ridiculous. Call me back." I let the message fade. Something inside me had shifted too far to snap back into place. I stood, walked to my bedroom, and pulled open the bottom drawer of my old dresser, the one I hadn't touched since before Lorraine married Grant. The wood stuck slightly, as if even it had grown unused to being opened. Inside lay the folder my husband Daniel left me before he passed. His handwriting was still neat on the tab. For Evelyn's future. I whispered, "Daniel, I'm sorry it took me this long." I sat on the edge of the bed and opened the folder. The papers inside were crisp, untouched. Property deeds. 2 rental homes in Somerville bought across 15 years. A parcel of land Daniel purchased when Lorraine was a toddler. A savings account he built quietly from overtime. Shifts 1 I had added to little by little. A life insurance policy he'd taken out in secret worth over $200,000. I traced my finger across his signature firm, deliberate. To everyone, even to my own daughter, I was just an old woman in a small cottage, living off a modest pension. Lorraine once joked, "At brunch, Mama retirement treated you rough, didn't it?" And I'd laughed to keep the peace. But Daniel had planned better than anyone realized. And I had honored that plan quietly, faithfully, never flaunting a single cent. I closed the folder and rested it on my lap. My phone rang once more, then silence. I placed the folder on my nightstand, knowing its weight meant something different tonight than it ever had before. Not money, not power, choice. A part of me I had buried years ago lifted its head. What happens when the person they underestimated finally remembers her own worth? Sunlight crept into the cottage the next morning, but it felt thin, like it was keeping its distance. I sat at the table with a cup of coffee gone cold, replaying years I had tried hard not to question. Lorraine had not always been sharp-tongued. She used to cling to my arm in grocery stores, whispering, "Mama, stay close." But everything shifted when she met Grant Pemberton and slipped into his Charleston world of ironed tablecloths, perfect posture, and polite cruelty disguised as charm. I remembered the first dinner at his parents' house. His mother, Eleanor, had smiled at me too long. "So, Evelyn," she said, "you do not dress up often." I smoothed the front of my thrifted blouse. "This is dressed up for me." Grant chuckled softly. "It's fine, babe," he told Lorraine. "She's just old-fashioned." Lorraine laughed with him. Not a nervous laugh, not a daughter defending her mother laugh, a laugh that tried to blend in. The next time they had me over, she whispered before opening the door, "Mama, maybe not the floral scarf today." I took it off without thinking. "Of course, sweetheart." Another memory, Grant had poured wine and joked, "Your mother's accent is adorable, very local." Lorraine nudged him, giggling. "Grant, stop." But her eyes told me she liked the attention his teasing brought. I swallowed every sting, telling myself it was nothing. Young couples joke. Families adjust. Mothers stay gracious. But listening to my own breathing in the quiet kitchen, I felt the truth settle in. These weren't small jokes. They were warnings I had chosen not to see because seeing them would mean admitting my daughter was drifting somewhere I could not follow. My phone buzzed another message from Lorraine. "Mama, we need to talk today." I didn't reply. I only pressed my palm flat against the table, steadying myself as old memories rearranged themselves into something clearer, harsher, honest at last. How long can love blind a mother before truth demands to be seen? The next morning, I dressed with a steadiness that surprised even me. Navy slacks, a pressed blouse, the pearl earrings Daniel gave me on our 10th anniversary. I took the folder from my nightstand and drove into downtown Charleston past the same marsh roads Daniel once used on his commute. Attorney Malcolm Reeves greeted me in his office doorway. His hair was whiter, his frame thinner, but his voice held the same gentle firmness I remembered. "Mrs. Hartwell." He said, "It has been too long." "It has," I answered, taking a seat. "I need your help." He folded his hands on the desk. Tell me everything. So I did. The Thanksgiving door. The laughter. Lorraine's voice calling me a burden. Malcolm didn't interrupt, just shook his head slowly as I spoke. When I finished, he let out a long breath. Evelyn, I am sorry. Truly. He leaned forward. But I must ask you something important. What do you want your future to look like, Mrs. Hartwell? No one had ever asked me that before. Not Daniel, not Lorraine. Certainly not myself. I opened the folder and pushed it toward him. I want to make decisions I should have made years ago. He scanned the papers, eyes widening slightly. Your husband left you with considerable assets. He trusted me to use them wisely, I said. Now I finally will. The next hour unfolded like shedding a skin. I updated my will. I revoked Lorraine's future claims over the properties. I converted every financial gift I had made to her car payments. College tuition help deposits into formal loans fully documented. Then I said the words that surprised even me. I want to establish a charitable trust. For older mothers treated the way I was. Call it the Low Country Mothers Trust. Malcolm's smile was small but proud, a fitting name. As I signed the final document, my hand did not tremble. What happens when a mother finally stops protecting feelings and protects her future instead? Lorraine texted early the next morning. Come over. We need to talk things out, please. I drove to her house without rushing. When she opened the door, her smile was tight, more performance than welcome. Come in, Mama, she said quickly. Let's just clear the air. The dining room was still dressed for Thanksgiving gold runners, untouched candles, place cards waiting for guests who had eaten without me. The sight made my breath catch, but I stepped inside. Grant stood near the window, arms crossed. His mother, Eleanor, sat stiffly at the table, lips pressed thin. Lorraine gestured toward a chair. Mama, let's start with what happened. You leaving like that, everyone was worried. Worried, I repeated softly. Her eyes flickered. Well, confused. It made a scene. I folded my hands. Lorraine, repeat the exact words you said before I walked away. Silence. She glanced at Grant, then at Eleanor, then back at me. I do not remember exactly, she muttered. I do, Grant said quietly. He rubbed his forehead. You said you were glad she was not here. You laughed, I added. All of you did. Eleanor's cheeks reddened, but she didn't defend herself. Lorraine's voice sharpened. Mama, I was stressed. Okay. It was a big night. People say things they do not mean. I heard relief, I said. Not stress. She clenched her fists. So what now? Are you going to punish me forever for one slip? I reached into my bag and placed a sealed envelope on the table. This is what now? Grant frowned in. What is that? I met with Malcolm Reeves yesterday, I said. The will is updated. The properties are no longer tied to Lorraine. Every financial support I gave her is now documented. And I created the Low Country Mothers Trust. Lorraine's face drained of color. You changed the will. Without talking to me. You made decisions without talking to me, I said. I am simply doing the same. Grant muttered. I told you, Lorraine. I told you this would come back. Eleanor whispered harshly. Good heavens, what have you done? Lorraine grabbed the envelope with shaking hands. Mama, you cannot do this. I already did, I said. Her breath hitched, not in guilt, in panic. How do you apologize when the damage was never an accident? Lorraine clutched the envelope as if it were burning her fingers. Mama, please. We can fix this. Just sit down and talk to me. I am talking, I said, staying on my feet. Grant hovered behind her jaw, tight. Eleanor's eyes bounced between us, calculating the social fallout, like it was a ledger she needed, balanced. Mama Lorraine whispered, Can we just go back to how things were? I will call you every day. We will have dinner every week. I will include you in everything. I swear it! Interesting timing, I replied. Her head jerked up. What do you mean you did not reach out like this when you thought I had nothing? You reached out the moment you realized what you might lose. That is not fair, she snapped. It is the truth, I said. Grant exhaled sharply. Lorraine, she has a point. You have not been exactly, do not start, she hissed at him. This is between me and my mother. I stepped closer not to intimidate, but to make sure she heard every word. You had years to treat me with respect. Years. And instead, you mocked me behind my back and smiled to my face. Lorraine shook her head, fast, desperate. I was overwhelmed, Mama. I never meant to hurt you. But you did, I said. Repeatedly, she reached for my hand. I can be better, I promise. I will prove it. Just do not shut me out like this. I pulled my hand back. You did not want me at your Thanksgiving table. You celebrated my absence. Her mouth fell open slightly. She looked like a child caught stealing candy, wanting to cry, but too embarrassed to let the tears fall. I spoke calmly, with no anger left in me, only certainty. Family does not celebrate your absence. The room stilled. Even Eleanor stopped breathing for a moment. Lorraine stared at me wide-eyed, her voice barely a whisper. Mama, please don't leave. I have spent nearly 3 decades coming when you called, I said. Today, I am choosing myself. I walked to the front door, straight-backed and steady, the weight on my shoulders, finally lifting as I stepped outside. Behind me, the house stayed silent. What does a daughter do when the mother she dismissed finally walks away? By the time November returned, the heaviness in my chest had settled into something calmer, something solid. I spent most days at the small office the Low Country Mothers Trust rented above a florist on Meeting Street. The bell on the shop door rang constantly downstairs, and every chime felt like a reminder that life kept moving, whether I was invited or not. Eveline, we have another referral called Mrs. Dunlap, one of our volunteers. She was 72, sharp as a thorn, and carried herself like she had survived every storm Charleston ever threw at her. Put her on the list, I said, taking the folder from her. No one waits alone. That had become our promise. By late afternoon, the other women drifted in one by one, neighbors, widows, mothers whose children had slowly vanished from their lives. Some brought pies, some brought stories, some brought nothing but tired eyes. All of them brought honesty. That evening, we gathered around my small dining table, 6 women, mismatched plates, and a peace I had never felt at Lorraine's perfectly arranged dinners. Mrs. Dunlap carved the ham. Eveline, honey, you sure you do not want me to say grace? I smiled. Go ahead. We bowed our heads, but her words were not the usual polished blessing. Thank you for the hands at this table, she said. Hands that have worked, held, and hurt, but never given up. When we started eating, conversation flowed easily. You built something real, murmured Marla, a soft-spoken grandmother who had joined the trust after her son stopped speaking to her. You gave us a place to breathe again. Before I could answer, my neighbor, Mrs. Ortega, slid a newspaper across the table toward me. Look, she said. Front page of the local section. There it was, my picture standing beside the trust's sign, smiling in a way I had not recognized for years. Charleston mother turns heartbreak into hope for dozens. I sat still as the women around me passed the paper from hand to hand. Pride swelling in the room like warm air. Somewhere across the city, Lorraine saw the same headline. I knew because my phone buzzed minutes later with a single message from her mama. I saw the article. I did not know you were doing all this. I am so sorry. I placed the phone face down, letting the laughter and gentle chatter around me fill the silence she used to occupy. Tonight's table was full in a way hers had never been. When the world starts admiring the mother you mistreated, how do you face yourself? 3 days after the newspaper article ran, I heard a soft knock at my door. Not hurried, not entitled, just hesitant. When I opened it, Lorraine stood alone. No Grant, no Eleanor, no audience. Her eyes were swollen, her hair pulled back without its usual perfection. She looked younger like this, almost like the girl who used to cling to my hand in crowds. "Mama," she whispered, "can I come in?" I stepped aside. She entered slowly, as if unsure she still had the right. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table. She didn't touch the mug of tea I set in front of her. "I need to say something," she began, "and I do not want anything in return. Not money, not the trust, not the will, nothing." I waited. She swallowed hard. "I was ashamed of you, Mama, not because of who you are, Mikey, but because of who I was trying to be." Her voice cracked. "Grant's family is obsessed with appearances. I wanted to fit in so badly I let them shape how I saw you." I didn't interrupt. She wiped her cheek with the sleeve of her sweater. "I laughed at their jokes. I repeated them. I pretended you embarrassed me, and I hurt you in ways I never should have." Her voice shook. I was wrong. Completely wrong. Silence stretched between us before I spoke. "Why come now?" "Because for the first time I can see you clearly," she whispered. "Everyone in the neighborhood is talking about you, but not like before. They admire you, they respect you, and all this time I should have done the same." I breathed in slowly. She continued, "I ruined my own marriage. Grant is furious. His mother will not even look at me. They keep saying I embarrassed them. And maybe I did. Maybe I deserve that." Her hands trembled. "But Mama, I cannot lose you. I just want a chance to earn back what I threw away." I reached across the table, placing my hand over hers, not to comfort, but to steady the truth. "I forgive you," I said. "I forgave you the moment I walked away. But forgiveness does not erase consequences. The trust stays. The will stays. The boundaries stay." She nodded through tears. "I understand. Respect is not inherited," I told her gently. "It is earned, and once lost, it may take years to win back." She cried quietly, not begging, not bargaining, just accepting. When she finally left, I remained at the table feeling the strange piece of a life rebuilt on my own terms. When a daughter finally learns the value of her mother, will she be willing to earn her place again? If you want, I can now write an epilogue or extend this into a full-length story arc. Just tell me.